Hey, Amy from A Blossoming Life, and today I want to show you just some easy make-ahead breakfast ideas. And these are great that you can freeze, so that way if busy mornings you can just grab something and go. So one thing I have been doing lately is I have been trying to use my grain mill a lot more. Fresh milled grains are a lot healthier for you, plus they have a lot of fiber. Most of the nutrients is lost within even a few hours of milling them. And so I've been trying to use this a lot more. Plus I have all the wheat berries, so why not? So first thing I'm gonna make is my sourdough unloaf bread. I showed this in my last video. It's so easy. It's the easiest sourdough bread you'll ever make. And I was going to try to do it as like a half whole wheat to make it a little bit healthier. We love having toast in the morning, and so this recipe could definitely be used for that. But I'm going to turn it into something at the end so you can see that. But I didn't realize after I had already measured everything out that I used the wrong wheat berries. I was planning on making muffins with this wheat flour, and I used soft white wheat, which is great for muffins and pastries and that kind of stuff, but not really for bread. It doesn't have as much gluten. And so the bread wasn't not going to turn out as fluffy, but that's totally fine, especially for what I ended up using it for anyways. So here I am, I'm just measuring the ingredients out, and then all you do is mix it up and then kind of just knead it a tiny bit. You're not really kneading it, you're just kind of combining the ingredients so that way they are just, the flour is hydrated, and then you just leave it. There's no stretch and folding, there's no nothing. If you want that recipe, you can find it in the description box below. So once you have all that done, all you do is cover it and let it sit for about 6 to 8 hours. I love to do this at nighttime, and that way in the morning I can shape the loaf and then bake it right in the morning. But I will also do this the day before. I'm planning to use it in the morning. Also works well then too. Next up, I'm gonna make a lemon sourdough blueberry bread. This is so delicious. This was a recipe test, so I've changed it a little bit since then, but all you're gonna do is you're gonna add the ingredients to a stand mixer and then bake it. Now, I will say if you can long ferment this, or you can just whip it up right away. You're not gonna get the benefits of sourdough if you just whip it up right away, but it's still delicious. In this case, I wanted to make it as more of a quick bread, so I did not let it ferment. But if you did, what I typically do for my long ferments is I just mix like the sugar, flour, butter, and liquid. So this, in this case, could be lemon juice or water or milk, whatever it is. And then I let it sit for up to 24 hours. Normally if I do milk, I'm not gonna let it sit that long. And then the next day I just add the remaining ingredients like eggs, vanilla, the baking soda, baking powder, and that works extremely well. So one of my favorite things about quick breads, muffins, is I love doubling the recipe, even possibly tripling it, depending on how I feel, because my theory is that when I'm in the kitchen, I want to do as much as possible so that I have to clean the least amount. I am not a big fan of cleaning, and so I try to do as little as possible. And so I'm gonna make a double or triple batch of bread or muffins. That way I'm using my stand mixer once, and then I only have to clean it once. But for us, real food is a priority. Trying to eat healthier, trying to eat whole food ingredients is a priority. And so this is just a simple way for me to be able to cook from scratch, but also like I don't have a lot of time. I have a lot of kids. I homeschool, I run a business, and so I don't have a ton of extra time. And so being able to be smart about how I'm spending my time makes this lifestyle possible. And so I need to think a little bit ahead, but I'm not a good planner. And so I just think, okay, I'm gonna make muffins. Why not make 2-3 dozen muffins, and I will throw them in the freezer. It just really works for us. Plus my husband is really the one who does breakfast in the morning, so this is a way to help him out. He usually will make eggs or some type of protein to go with them, so we're not just eating a bread. But he does that, and so this is also just helpful to him, that he doesn't have to think like, oh, do I need to make French toast? What do I need to make? He has something that he can just grab and then add some type of protein with it. Random tip, scrunch up your parchment paper. It makes it so much easier to put it into your loaf pans or cookie sheets or anything like that. So add the sourdough blueberry lemon bread to a pan. Make sure to spread it out evenly, and then you're going to want to bake this at 375 for about 50 to 60 minutes. It kind of just depends on your oven. And it turned out so yummy. Next time, I used bottled lemon juice because that's what I had, but I'm definitely going to do fresh lemon juice with lemon zest because it definitely brings out the flavor. While that is baking, I'm gonna get some sourdough cinnamon muffins started. So I am gonna long ferment these, and I'm using fresh milled wheat with those soft white wheat berries. And I get them from Azure Standard. I'll leave the link in the description below. But they have the best price there. But with these, I like to long ferment them because my husband does have issues with gluten, and this helps break down the gluten and make it a little bit more digestible for him. That way he can tolerate some grains. Highly recommend starting this recipe in the stand mixer bowl. That way tomorrow when I go to add the eggs and everything else, it is a lot easier to incorporate the ingredients. If it's already in the stand mixer bowl, I'm not having to transfer it. I'm just mixing together here the sourdough starter, flour, and oil. Mix it up, cover it, and let it sit in a warm spot anywhere from 8 to 24 hours. The sourdough lemon blueberry bread turned out so yummy, and I am planning on putting it in a new ebook that I'm creating, so I will make sure to link that in the description whenever it is available. Now I'm just feeding my sourdough starter, and let me tell you that when we did our kitchen update, we put in a reverse osmosis system, and it is the best thing ever. It is such a time saver. The water is amazing, and because we're on a well, and it's just so good. So highly recommend it. To give your sourdough loaves some more oven springs so that they are bigger, you need to do some tension where you're just creating tension on the surface of the dough, and this really allows it to spring up more. While this dough will not spring up that much because I used the wrong flour, it still turned out totally fine, especially for what I plan on using it for, which is a French toast casserole. So I'm just letting it sit out now for about an hour, and this is where my son almost broke my camera. So there we go. I did bake this bread about an hour later, and you can even put it in the fridge overnight if you'd like to, and then bake it straight from the fridge. But I waited to take pictures because it was just way too dark to even do that. So now I'm just finishing up my muffins. I'm adding the eggs, the vanilla, the baking soda, baking powder, and once I mix it, I decided if I needed to add a little bit more liquid to it, which I usually use milk or water. Either will work. The unfortunate thing is that the morning that I was going to finish these muffins, our oven stopped working, and so I had to truck down to the shop and grab our toaster oven. Minor inconvenience, but I'm just glad we had something to bake it in since I already had started them. Last on my list to make was this French toast casserole. I have a recipe on the blog, but I had to make some modifications because I didn't have some of the ingredients, and it still turned out amazing. So I will link it in the description box below, but instead of using maple syrup or honey, I used brown sugar, and then instead of Greek yogurt, I used a stick of butter. So totally different, but it still worked, and it was really delicious. And then in this version, I am doing blueberries instead. So you just mix up a custard, which is milk, eggs, melted butter, sugar, some type of sweetener, vanilla extract, and you just whisk it together. Next, you're just going to cube up some bread, and you don't have to make your own homemade bread. Obviously, you can get a loaf of store-bought bread, but the crustier bread does work better. So cube it up, and then you're just going to add it to a baking sheet and add whatever fruit you want to. You could do chopped apples, you could add nuts, you could do pears, blueberries, raspberries, any of that would be delicious. and then pour the custard over it. So remember how our oven broke? Well, it didn't actually fit. I had to find a pan that would fit into the toaster oven, and then it still wouldn't fit. So I ended up like smashing it down quite a bit to actually get it to fit in there. And then you're just gonna bake it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes, or until it is just completely baked and the internal temperature is about 165. So there you go. There's about 5 ideas for make ahead breakfast if you count toast from that bread. And I just really hope you enjoy these recipes. You can find them below in the description box.